Hey everyone, it's Lisa. Today I'm working with my Sakura Koi watercolor pocket field sketch box, and I'm going to be working to mix my yellows with my blues to see what all variety of greens I can get. You remember I did this swatch of all the colors, and I've got a really nice variety of oranges and yellows and reds and blues, but the green is kind of limited to just these three greens, so I thought I'd see what other kind of greens I can mix using all of my yellows and all of my blues. So what I've done here is I've organized my colors from coolest to warmest, and I've included yellow ochre on here as well. It's not actually yellow, it's an ochre color, but I want to see what happens if I mix these with my blues as well. I'll probably get a little bit more of a neutral tone when I mix those, but since it's called yellow, I thought I would include it in the mixing. So I'm going to get started here. I'm going to start off first by mixing a lemon yellow, which is a nice cool yellow, with cerulean blue. So I'm going to put these out on my palette and also on here. So this is the cerulean, these are the pure colors over in the corner, and then I'm going to start to mix them. So if I mix a tiny bit of yellow into cerulean blue, I will get this color right here, which looks like this. Okay, so it's really a bluey green, obviously. Give my brush a good cleaning here. And now I'm going to mix more yellow into this blue. So here we go, mixing more yellow into the blue. So here I'm getting a really vibrant green. And then I'm going to do the reverse, which is mix more blue into the yellow. So this is a very bright yellow here. I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of blue and mix that in. So there are the three greens that I can get by mixing my lemon yellow and my cerulean blue. Now let's go on to mixing the lemon yellow with a Prussian blue. So Prussian blue is just this third one here on my palette. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of that right on here. Super nice blue. Awesome. And then we're going to mix these. Pick the right one up, it's important. We're going to mix these on my palette. So here we go. This is mostly blue with a little bit of yellow. Let's see what we can get here. A little bit of yellow in the blue will look like this. That's a lot of yellow. Let's go over here and do a little bit of yellow. So a little bit of yellow in the blue gives us this. And then a lot of yellow in the blue. Ooh. Let's see here. Gives us this. And then a little bit of blue in the yellow gives us this. All right, so there we have three more greens. You can see all of these greens are different from each other. Now we're going to move over and mix the cobalt blue in with the lemon yellow. So straight up cobalt is looking like this. And now put some on my palette. And we'll pick up some yellow and we'll mix a tiny bit of yellow into the blue. So this is mostly blue, tiny bit of yellow. That's what we get. And now more yellow in the blue. And we get this. And now we're going to put a tiny bit of blue in the yellow. And we get this. All right, moving right along. I'm going to switch out to Ultramarine Deep. So that looks like this. This is my warmest blue. Again, I went from cool to warm here on my palette. And let's see, Ultramarine mixed with a tiny bit of yellow gives us this sort of muddy. All right, let's get this on here. And then we're going to go a little bit more equally between the two. So this is a very dull green. And then we're going to take mostly yellow with a little bit of ultramarine. So here is mostly yellow, tiny bit of ultramarine. I get even more yellow here. Let's see what happens. All right, so these are all of the greens I can mix with my lemon yellow. And now we're going to try the orlean yellow. All right, so now a nice clean brush. We're going to pick up some orlean hue. I'll show you what that looks like straight off the palette. Let's put some out here first. So this yellow is a little warmer than the lemon, and it looks like this. Now we're going to pick up this color up and start to mix it with our blues. So let's see, starting with cerulean blue. I'm just going to put that right on here. See if I can do this a little more organized than the last one. All right, so cerulean blue with a tiny bit of orlean is going to give us this blue green. Oh, that's kind of pretty. Just the tiniest bit of yellow in that. Now I'll pull a little more yellow into the blue, and we're going to get something more like this. A little more yellow. Here we go. And then we're going to put just a little bit of blue in the yellow. And grab just a little more yellow. And we'll end up with this green here. All right, now moving on to Prussian blue with orlean yellow. So let's get some more yellow out here. All right, now I'm going to mix this with Prussian blue. So put that over here. And we'll get just a tiny bit of yellow. That in the blue, and we get this, and then a little more yellow mixes out to this, and then the reverse, just a tiny bit of blue in the yellow. All right, moving along to cobalt blue. I'll get some more yellow. And here we go with cobalt. Okay, so cobalt with a tiny titch of yellow gives us this. And now moving on to more yellow in the cobalt. And then just a tiny bit of blue in the yellow. Awesome. Now on to ultramarine deep. Grabbing that. This might be my favorite blue. Let's make a nice puddle right here. I'll grab some more yellow. First, my brush needs to be clean. All right, more yellow. All right, so let's start with a tiny bit of yellow in the blue. Just clean off my brush again. Okay, so a tiny bit of yellow in the blue. Gives it much more of a gray color. And then more yellow. This is a very stormy gray. Gray-green. Good for shadows. And now a tiny bit of blue in the yellow. Okay, we're halfway there. Now we're moving on to permanent yellow, but first we'll clean our palette. So here's what she looks like. All of the blues and greens so far. All right, so our next yellow is the permanent yellow, and this is what it looks like straight off the palette. It's a much warmer yellow. Now we're going to mix this with cerulean blue. So we'll get our blue happening here. Get a bunch of it. And now a tiny bit of yellow coming into the blue. I'm gonna get this. And then half and half. And then just a little bit of blue in the yellow. Just a little more. Moving on to Prussian blue. Okay, final color, ultramarine deep, mixed with permanent yellow. And now a little more yellow. That's a nice gray right there. And then finally, tiny bit of ultramarine in the permanent yellow. Okay, last color, moving on now to the yellow ochre. Get our palette nice, beautiful palette, get it nice and clean. Dump a little water in here. All right, so here is the yellow ochre, which isn't really yellow. It's more of a tan brown color. So I'm thinking most of the greens we're going to get here are going to be fairly warm neutrals. So let's see what we get with the cerulean blue. All right, cerulean blue mixed with tiny bit of yellow ochre. Okay, now sort of half and half. Cerulean blue and yellow ochre. And then mostly yellow with a little bit of cerulean blue. Okay, there they are. Now grab us some more yellow ochre. And this time we're gonna move over to the Prussian blue. And the Prussian is a very unique blue color. It's got this ink sort of color about it. And now we're just going to pull in a tiny little bit of the yellow. And that gives us this hint of green. So this one's fairly granulating. You can see little dots. And I'll pull in some more yellow. And we'll get kind of a dinosaur green here. Oh, it's greenish. It's bluish. And then the reverse will put just a little bit of blue in the yellow. Okay, moving on now to cobalt blue and yellow ochre. Yellow ochre. And cobalt blue. All right, now let's just add a tiny titch of yellow into this blue. We get this. And we'll make it more half and half-ish. We'll get this. And we'll get more mostly yellow. And we will get this. Okay, last square. Ultramarine deep with yellow ochre. So we'll get those out here. Here's the yellow. And these are the two that are most likely to get contaminated on my palette because they're right beside each other, side by side. And a little more. All right, now we're just going to take a little bit of yellow into the blue. Just enough to change it. We get this. And now we'll make it more half and half. And we'll get this. And then finally, more yellow, tiny bit of blue. This makes it nice brown, deep, deep, neutral brown. Okay, so these are all of the colors that I can mix. Oh, so let's just take a minute to look at the beautiful colors on here. So these are all of the different colors that I can mix using these 8 colors that are on my ready-made palette. And you can see that if you compare them to the greens that I was originally given, just move some things here. The greens that I had to work with were these 3, which were permanent green, deep, viridian hue, and permanent pale, and then this olive green. So my ultramarine deep with lemon yellow comes a little bit close to this olive green, and the same with the permanent yellow mixed with cobalt. So those come close to this olive. I would say maybe the closer one is, I don't know, one of those. And then if I look at this permanent green pale, that's a little bit similar to these 2 greens here that I got with the lemon yellow and the cerulean and Prussian blues. It's a little bit like, maybe even a little bit like this cobalt, but it's definitely more vibrant here on the tray. And then I've got viridian and permanent. This one here, the orlean yellow mixed with cobalt blue, has a sort of a more grayed out version of this viridian. And I would say there's nothing much here that looks like the permanent green. These 2 here come the closest to these 2, but I would say they're probably both closer to the viridian. And then I've got all of these other shades that are not on my actual palette. And when I'm painting in watercolor, sometimes I want to have the option of adding a shadow in a color that's a little bit more muted than the colors that I'm working with. So this gives me some more options. And even when we're painting, like imagine these are all trees. If I was painting trees, I don't know that any of these colors would be the color I'd want to use, but this permanent yellow and cobalt is a really nice evergreen tree color. And maybe even this ultramarine deep with lemon yellow, maybe that's a nice color for a natural looking tree. And then same here with this yellow ochre with cobalt blue. Or if I was even looking for a turquoise, this cobalt with yellow ochre is an interesting dimmed down version of the cobalt. And then I've got some nice vibrant turquoises here that I've pulled out that definitely did not come on my original palette. So this is nice and handy to use as a reference if I'm looking to find a color in the greenish turquoise-ish yellowy green range when I'm painting a picture. So I hope you enjoyed that, and be sure to come back for more Doodle Draw Art. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.